The sun poured lazily through the classroom windows, painting streaks of gold across the desks and the soft hum of students chatting in the background. I slouched in my seat, trying my best to look invisible, blending into the mundane chaos of high school life. My name is Ryan, 17, a typical senior with average grades and a life that revolved around routine. At least, that's what everyone thought. No one knew that beneath my ordinary exterior, I nursed a secret fascination, one that tingled at the edge of my consciousness for years. Crossdressing wasn't something I did every day. It was a private thrill, an exploration of identity that I had only dared to explore in the privacy of my room. A skirt here, a borrowed top there, careful makeup that I applied under the hum of my desk lamp. It was my escape from the monotony of my normal life. But it wasn't just about clothes. It was about the sensation of stepping into a persona that felt different, freer, bolder than the timid boy everyone saw in the hallway. My room was my sanctuary, filled with neatly folded skirts, soft blouses, and a modest collection of makeup that I had accumulated carefully, cautiously. No one in my life had ever discovered it, not my parents, not my friends, not even my closest classmates. I had always kept it hidden, compartmentalized, a small secret tucked away beneath the layers of who I was supposed to be. That day, though, something had shifted. Our school had organized a spirit week, and one of the challenges was a dress like a teacher day. The thought had lingered in my mind all week, teasing me with an idea I had never dared to act on. To me, it wasn't just a costume. It was an opportunity, a bridge into the thrilling persona I had kept locked away. The more I imagined it, the more I craved it. The skirt, the blouse, the heels, the subtle makeup that could complete the illusion. My heart raced as I slipped out of my uniform in the bathroom that morning, carefully hiding my clothes in my backpack. I had borrowed my older sister's wardrobe, choosing a skirt that fell just above the knee, paired with a crisp blouse. The skirt swayed around my legs as I walked, each step a mix of fear and exhilaration. I applied a touch of eyeliner, just enough to define my eyes, and carefully brushed my hair into a style I hoped would look convincing. By the time I stepped into the classroom, I felt a surge of adrenaline. No one had seen me like this before. I was transforming not just physically, but emotionally. The mirrors in the hallway reflected a version of me that was daring, confident, and unmistakably feminine. I was both terrified and thrilled by the thought of anyone discovering my secret. Emma, my girlfriend of 6 months, had always been supportive of my quirks and passions, but I had never shared this side of myself with her. I wasn't sure how she would react to the idea of me fully embracing crossdressing in public, even if it was just for fun at school. Her voice rang in my head that morning. "Be careful, Ryan. People can be cruel." I ignored her warning, driven by a curiosity and excitement that outweighed the fear. Class had already started when I slipped in, and the murmur of conversation froze for a moment as a few heads turned in surprise. I kept my eyes down, trying not to draw too much attention while secretly enjoying the thrill of being noticed. The skirt swayed gently with each step, the heels adding a delicate click to my movements. I could feel the gaze of some of my classmates, a mix of curiosity, amusement, and shock. My pulse raced, a mixture of pride and anxiety, as I realized the game I had chosen to play. Then came Mr. Harris, our history teacher, walking into the classroom. Tall, strict, and notorious for his no-nonsense attitude, he scanned the room with piercing eyes that could cut through pretense like a knife. My stomach twisted as his gaze landed on me, lingering just a fraction too long. My heart skipped a beat. He was looking straight at me, not with mockery, not with judgment, but with a sudden, sharp interest that made me tremble. "Ryan," he asked, his voice steady but inquisitive. I felt the blood drain from my face. I nodded hesitantly, my fingers gripping the edges of the desk. "Interesting choice for Spirit Week," he continued, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. My mind raced. Was he going to scold me, call me out in front of everyone, humiliate me? But instead, he walked past my desk, his eyes lingering on the skirt and the confident, trembling posture I had tried to perfect. A hush fell over the classroom. the students glancing between me and Mr. Harris, whispering behind cupped hands. I felt both exposed and strangely powerful, like I was balancing on the edge of a knife. For years, I had hidden this part of myself, and now it was out in the open, in the most public, most nerve-wracking place I could imagine. My classroom. As Mr. Harris began the lesson, I tried to focus, but I could feel his eyes occasionally flicking toward me, assessing, analyzing, observing. And with every glance, I felt a mix of anxiety, excitement, and a strange sense of validation. Perhaps he saw not just a student in a skirt, but someone daring enough to step outside the box, someone embracing a side of themselves that most people would never dare reveal. By the end of the period, something had shifted. My classmates no longer whispered with mockery. Instead, I noticed smiles, subtle nods, and glances of admiration. The initial shock had transformed into intrigue. And through it all, I realized something astonishing. This small act of rebellion, this experiment in self-expression, had changed how everyone, including Mr. Harris, saw me. For the first time, I felt a surge of confidence I had never known, a sense that this secret part of me, the side I had hidden away for so long, might not be something to fear. Instead, it could be a source of power, identity, and even admiration. The morning's tension had given way to a new reality. I had crossed a boundary, and in doing so, I had discovered a version of myself that was alive, daring, and impossible to ignore. After that first period, the thrill of being noticed in a skirt refused to leave me. Every step through the hallways was electrifying, heels clicking, skirt swaying, heart pounding. I could feel my classmates' eyes lingering, their curiosity mixing with a hint of admiration. For the first time, I wasn't just Ryan, the quiet, average student. I was someone daring, visible, and dangerously intriguing. I ducked into the restroom to check myself in the mirror. The reflection staring back was almost unrecognizable. Eyeliner perfectly lined, hair styled just so, skirt falling gracefully around my knees. I pressed my fingers lightly to my lips, marveling at how different I felt. There was a new confidence in the way I carried myself, a subtle grace in my movements. But beneath it all, a knot of anxiety churned. What if someone, Emma, my friends, or worse, a teacher, found out about the real me? My thoughts drifted to Emma, curled up on her couch at home this morning, warning me to be careful. She didn't know I had taken this risk. She didn't know that I had transformed myself into someone else entirely just for the thrill of Spirit Week. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly replaced by excitement. I had always kept this side of myself hidden, and now it was coming alive in ways I had only dared to imagine. By the second period, the classroom had transformed from a place of ordinary routine to a stage. Whispers traveled across the room like electric currents. Some of the boys avoided eye contact, embarrassed or unsure how to react, while the girls stole glances that were curious and amused. I kept my posture straight, hands resting delicately on my desk, trying to look casual but feeling every heartbeat like a drum. Then came the unthinkable. Mr. Harris, the teacher who had noticed me first, assigned me to present the next project. My stomach twisted. I had always been shy, avoiding public speaking whenever possible. But now, standing in a skirt, with makeup on and heels clicking against the floor, I was being thrust into the spotlight. Panic and exhilaration warred inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my trembling hands as my classmates watched with a mix of expectation and curiosity. I stepped to the front of the room, my heart hammering, and felt an unusual sensation, empowerment. The skirt, the blouse, the heels, they weren't just clothes. They were armor, a shield that made me feel more confident than I had ever been. I spoke, carefully at first, then more fluidly as I felt the eyes on me. To my surprise, the words flowed naturally, the confidence in my voice rising with each sentence. Mr. Harris nodded subtly, a barely perceptible smile playing on his lips. After the presentation, I returned to my seat, a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through me. But the real surprise came during lunch. My classmates approached me, some laughing, some curious, all intrigued. "Ryan, you look amazing," one girl said, her eyes sparkling. A couple of the boys gave awkward thumbs-ups, clearly unsure how to respond. For the first time, I felt noticed, not just for who I had always been, but for the persona I had embraced today. As the day continued, I found myself navigating a maze of exhilaration and anxiety. Every glance, every whisper, every step felt amplified. I kept checking my reflection in any available mirror, hallway windows, bathroom stalls, shiny surfaces. Each time, I marveled at the transformation. My makeup was subtle but effective. The skirt and blouse hugged my body in ways that accentuated a newfound grace. My heels, though unfamiliar, made my posture taller, more commanding. And through it all, I felt a thrill I had never known, the dangerous excitement of being seen, exposed, yet admired. Yet the suspense wasn't gone. Every time the classroom door opened, my heart skipped a beat. Would Mr. Harris pull me aside and reprimand me? Would a friend spot the mascara I had subtly applied under my eyes? Could Emma find out, and would she be upset or supportive? The questions loomed, a constant undercurrent of tension that made each moment feel precarious. The pivotal moment came during history class, when Mr. Harris asked a particularly challenging question. My hand shot up, and all eyes turned to me. For a fleeting second, I panicked. This was not just about appearance anymore. But then I remembered the confidence that had carried me through the presentation. I spoke clearly, articulating my answer with precision. Mr. Harris's nod of approval sent a thrill of validation through me. I was not only surviving this experiment, I was excelling. After class, a small group of students lingered, whispering and smiling. One of the girls, the class's unofficial trendsetter, leaned close. "Seriously, Ryan, you should wear skirts more often. You look amazing." My cheeks flushed with a mixture of pride and embarrassment. I nodded awkwardly, unsure how to respond. Her words were thrilling, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. By mid-afternoon, the adrenaline began to mingle with a creeping fatigue. Walking down the hall in heels after hours of heightened awareness was exhausting. I ducked into an empty classroom to adjust my outfit and check my makeup. The skirt felt comfortable now, the blouse perfect, the makeup flawless. But the reality of what I had done hit me. I had exposed a side of myself that I had kept hidden for years. And tomorrow, I would have to face the aftermath, the curiosity, the whispers, the attention. The suspense intensified when the final period began. Mr. Harris called me aside privately, and my stomach twisted. Was I about to be punished? Scolded? Humiliated? But instead, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Ryan, you handled today exceptionally well. You've got charisma, presence. Keep this confidence, it suits you." My jaw dropped. I had expected criticism, not praise. The thrill of being caught in a skirt, once terrifying, now transformed into a validation I had never imagined. As the final bell rang, students streamed out, but whispers and glances continued. Some laughed quietly, others nodded in admiration. I felt the exhilarating mix of vulnerability and power. My secret was no longer just a private thrill, it had become a public experiment, a game of identity and perception. The excitement, the anxiety, the fear of exposure, it all converged, leaving me both exhausted and electrified. That evening, at home, I texted Emma cautiously, debating whether to confess. She replied with a single message, "I can't wait to hear about your day, smirking face." My heart skipped. I knew the next challenge would be navigating her reaction, the attention from classmates, and the new persona I had discovered in myself. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thrilling thought lingered. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke with a nervous flutter in my stomach. The previous day's thrill still lingered, but it had been replaced by a new anxiety, anticipation. Word of my skirt had spread, and the school buzzed with curiosity. Everyone seemed to know, yet no one had mocked me outright. Instead, there was a mixture of admiration, fascination, and perhaps even envy. I felt both exhilarated and exposed, walking into the school as if the walls themselves were watching. I adjusted my outfit carefully in the bathroom mirror before class. A neatly pleated skirt, a fitted blouse, subtle eyeliner, and polished shoes. Each detail mattered. The reflection staring back at me was confident, poised, but I could feel the vulnerability underneath. The heels made my posture perfect, but every step echoed loudly in the hallways, each click a reminder of how visible I had become. The first challenge came sooner than expected. During homeroom, Mr. Harris called me aside, his tone neutral but commanding. "Ryan, I've noticed how well you handled yourself yesterday. There's a school assembly this afternoon. You'll be presenting a segment on Spirit Week. I need you to prepare something engaging." My heart skipped. This was more than I had anticipated. Being the center of attention in front of the entire school, the stakes had just skyrocketed. By lunchtime, whispers filled the cafeteria. Classmates approached me, some teasing, some curious. "Ryan, you're literally the star of Spirit Week," one girl said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I smiled nervously, feeling the thrill and anxiety collide in my chest. Every glance, every laugh, every hushed conversation seemed to focus on me. I was both empowered and terrified. The assembly loomed closer, and I retreated to the restroom to prepare. My hands shook slightly as I touched up my makeup, adjusted my skirt, and smoothed my hair. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, each pulse a reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just a game anymore. This was a performance, a test of courage, identity, and self-expression. When I stepped onto the stage, the gymnasium erupted with applause and whispers. Hundreds of students, teachers, and staff were staring, their eyes following my every movement. I felt a wave of fear, but beneath it, a surge of exhilaration. The skirt swayed gracefully with each step, the heels grounding me and lending a newfound poise. I took a deep breath and began speaking, describing my experience with Spirit Week, the joy of experimenting with self-expression, and the unexpected support I had found from classmates and even teachers. As I spoke, I noticed Mr. Harris watching intently, his expression unreadable. He didn't interrupt or correct me. He simply observed, his eyes giving me a subtle nod of encouragement at key moments. My confidence grew with each passing sentence, my voice stronger, steadier. I could feel the energy of the crowd, the excitement in their eyes, and a strange, intoxicating power surged through me. Then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. The assembly coordinator, a strict and no-nonsense teacher, walked onto the stage behind me. "Ryan," she said sharply, "perhaps you should consider the dress code more carefully." A ripple of tension swept through the crowd. My pulse spiked. I could feel all eyes on me, the spotlight amplifying every heartbeat. The hall seemed to shrink around me, every inch of my exposed persona magnified. I froze for a split second, weighing my options. Should I retreat, explain, or stand my ground? The skirt felt like armor now, the persona I had embraced lending me courage. "I'm following the Spirit Week theme," I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled slightly. "This is part of the experience. It's about self-expression and confidence." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some supportive, some skeptical. Then, from the side of the stage, a few classmates whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "He's actually killing it." Wow. The unexpected support bolstered my courage. I smiled and continued, weaving humor, charm, and authenticity into my speech. The crowd's initial tension transformed into engagement. By the time I finished, there were cheers, applause, and even some students giving approving nods. But the suspense wasn't over. Backstage, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning, I saw Emma, her eyes wide with a mix of shock, curiosity, and amusement. "Ryan, you're incredible," she whispered. My chest tightened. Here was someone I trusted more than anyone, witnessing this fully exposed side of me. Her presence was both reassuring and nerve-wracking. I had feared judgment, but instead, I felt a strange sense of validation. Just as I began to relax, a loud gasp echoed from the audience. One of my classmates had accidentally dropped a phone, playing a live stream of the assembly. Within seconds, the entire school, and potentially parents watching online, could see me in my full crossdressing ensemble. My heart lurched. Panic surged. Every step I had taken, every moment of courage, now hung in the balance. I bolted off the stage, skirts swirling, heels clattering against the floor. Emma caught my arm, steadying me. "Ryan, you've got this," she said. Her words were a lifeline, grounding me in the chaos. I took a deep breath, adjusted my skirt, and stepped back into the spotlight. The murmurs of the crowd had shifted from shock to curiosity, anticipation, and even admiration. The climax reached its peak when Mr. Harris approached, placing a hand gently on my shoulder. "Ryan, you've shown courage and authenticity today. That's what Spirit Week is about." Relief, exhilaration, and pride coursed through me. I realized that in exposing myself, in embracing this persona fully, I had earned respect, admiration, and even a sense of empowerment I had never known. Yet, amidst the triumph, the suspense lingered. The live stream meant that anyone could see, anyone could comment, anyone could judge. The stakes had never been higher, and the emotional roller coaster had only begun. I felt exhilarated, vulnerable, and alive in a way that no ordinary day could ever provide. The gymnasium was still buzzing from the applause, but my heart pounded in a rhythm I could barely control. The exhilaration of the assembly had left me both drained and electrified. I adjusted my skirt nervously, my hands brushing the soft fabric as I tried to steady my racing pulse. Emma's presence beside me was a grounding force, yet also a reminder that this side of me, so long hidden, was no longer a secret. The live stream had amplified everything. In the back of my mind, I knew hundreds, maybe thousands, could have seen me. The thought was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. What would my parents think? My friends? The wider school community? Every compliment, every cheer, suddenly carried the weight of potential scrutiny, judgment, or ridicule. I wanted to savor the moment, the thrill of being noticed, the validation of stepping into my feminine persona. Yet the tension lingered, a persistent whisper of anxiety that I couldn't shake. My heels clicked against the floor as I walked with Emma toward the exit, every step a reminder that the public exposure hadn't ended. Whispers followed me in the hallways, glances lingered longer than necessary, and every eye felt like it carried judgment or admiration, or both. Then came the unexpected. A shadow loomed in the doorway of the gym. Mr. Harris, usually composed and professional, looked unusually serious. My stomach knotted as he motioned for me to come closer. "Ryan," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the murmurs of students still lingering in the gym, "there's someone who wants to speak with you, privately." My pulse spiked. Who could it be? A principal? A parent? Another teacher? Panic surged as I followed him down the quiet corridor, skirts swaying with each step, heels clicking loudly against the polished floor. Every nerve in my body screamed that this was a critical moment, that whatever awaited could change everything I had just experienced. The corridor opened into an empty office, dimly lit by the late afternoon sun filtering through blinds. And there, standing with an unreadable expression, was Miss Lark, the strictest teacher in the school, known for her rigid enforcement of rules and unyielding demeanor. My heart lurched. What could she possibly want with me? "Ryan," she began, her tone calm but firm, "I saw the assembly. You made quite an impression." She paused, letting the words sink in. My throat went dry. Was this praise, or a prelude to punishment? "You've shown courage, creativity, and confidence," she continued, "but there are concerns. The dress code, and the attention it's drawn." Every syllable felt like a tightening noose. I tried to nod, unsure how to respond. "I need you to understand something," she said, stepping closer, her gaze fixed on me. "This is not just about skirts or Spirit Week. There are eyes on you now, students, teachers, parents. And what you choose to do next could define how they see you and how you see yourself." The weight of her words hit me like a tidal wave. My secret, my thrill, My carefully curated persona, it was no longer contained. It was exposed, observed, and judged by forces far larger than I had imagined. The exhilaration of yesterday and today collided with a terrifying reality. I had entered a world where my identity, my choices, and even my crossdressing could be scrutinized, applauded, or condemned. Emma stepped into the office quietly, her hand brushing mine in silent support. I felt a spark of reassurance, but it did little to calm the storm of adrenaline and anxiety inside me. Ms. Lark's eyes softened slightly, though her tone remained serious. "You have a choice, Ryan," she said. "Embrace this side of yourself carefully, or risk it being used against you. Confidence is one thing, exposure is another." I swallowed hard, trying to process the gravity of her words. The skirt, the heels, the persona I had created, all of it felt suddenly fragile, like a delicate glass sculpture teetering on the edge of a counter. I could feel the thrill and danger intertwined, a mix of empowerment and vulnerability that was almost unbearable. A sudden sound outside the office door made me freeze, the faint click of a camera. My stomach dropped. Someone was documenting this moment. Was it a student snapping a picture? A teacher recording? My pulse surged as I realized the stakes had reached a new level. Every heartbeat echoed with the potential for discovery, exposure, or even humiliation. Emma squeezed my hand gently. "Ryan, whatever happens, I'm here," she whispered. Her words anchored me, but the tension remained, a razor-sharp edge cutting through the exhilaration I had felt moments before. Ms. Lark stepped back, her gaze lingering on me for a long moment. "Think carefully, Ryan. The choices you make from here will matter, and not just for Spirit Week." She turned and left the office, leaving a silent weight hanging in the air. I stood there, skirts swaying slightly, heels clacking softly, heart racing uncontrollably. The office felt impossibly quiet, the world outside suspended. Emma's supportive presence was a balm, yet it could not erase the looming uncertainty. My identity, my secret, my daring experiment in self-expression, it was all on the line. And then, from the doorway, a shadowed figure appeared, a student, one I didn't recognize fully, holding a phone pointed at me. My heart leapt. Was this the end of my privacy? Had the thrill of being the class star just turned into a nightmare of exposure? The figure hesitated, giving me a small, mischievous smile, and whispered, "This is going viral, isn't it?" I froze, skirts swaying, heels poised, adrenaline pumping. Every nerve in my body screamed as the door clicked shut behind them. My world had changed in a single instant. The thrill, the admiration, the validation, it was all hanging by a thread, and I had no idea which way it would fall. The suspense was absolute. Would my secret be embraced, or would it explode into scandal? Could I navigate the attention and maintain the persona I had discovered? Or would the next few moments undo everything I had worked for? I took a shaky breath, feeling both terrified and exhilarated, knowing that my life as Ryan, the boy who had dared to step into a skirt, would never be the same.